tried to be the girl next door.
I guess it could be said that I discovered Angelina Jolie and didn't pay her.
She was taking acid, cocaine, heroin. She was cutting herself with knives.
For many reasons, I shouldn't be here.
And the winner is Angelina Jolie. Yeah.
When she went to Cambodia, she just realized, you know, life is not Hollywood, and it's...
Angelina is so sharp, you really have to be on your A game.
This footage of Angelina Jolie has never been seen before. She was 16 years old, already with her incredible mouth, and she wanted to become a model. She had been chosen to replace Cindy Crawford in a swimsuit ad campaign. She appears comfortable, feels wild, and we sense that she'd like to be provocative but doesn't yet dare. Sean McCall is a photographer who took the photos that day. It was in Los Angeles, where he still lives.
I've seen many, many, many faces over the years, and that was one that literally jumped off the page, and I said, wow.
As we will discover, Angelina is unpredictable. She makes the decisions, and she sets the tone.
In 2 hours of that, I got a call from her agent at the time saying she will no longer be doing modeling. She's only going to focus on her motion picture career.
Angelina is extreme. She got tired of static images, so she gives up $1 million contract. She wanted to move and to speak. She signed up for film casting calls and met Mark Gordon, a slightly zany producer.
So when you think about it, you know, when we look back into history, Angelina Jolie is at a modeling agency in Los Angeles. She's a young girl of 17. She comes walking through the door to be cast into her first film, and she captivates myself and the director to the point where we fall in love with her instantly.
This is Mark Gordon's film. It is Angelina Jolie's first appearance on screen. At 17, she was already sultry, already incredible. And the atmosphere around her was already crazy.
And this is how Angelina Jolie was discovered. You could see there was a lot of depth there. There was a lot of intelligence with her, which brought a mystery.
She was wise to take that first role unpaid. In the aftermath, at not even 18 years old, Angelina landed her first role in a feature film, Cyborg. She looked great.
Why me?
Determined, serious, athletic, she gave it everything she had. But the film was a flop. Angelina was disappointed. All her training and the body she had built for the film didn't come to much. She went from casting session to casting session, but try as she might, nobody wanted her.
When I first started auditioning, I tried to be the girl next door, and I would go to the audition and try to and they always said, no, you're not bright enough, you're not, you know, I'm not good at that.
In fact, she was always either too much or not enough. Who knows? And in 1995, at 20 years old, with hovering doubt about her ability to break out, she decided on a dangerous and radical strategy. If people didn't want a normal it girl, she cut her hair and promoted herself as a fiery character. For example, the movie Gia, a true story of a lesbian model's descent into hell and heroin addiction. Here, she was at the premiere. She was hardly comfortable, even a little awkward. She garbled her words.
So sorry. It's a really heavy role, and I didn't know if I was physically healthy and up for it. And it was going to bring me to every kind of make me just think about all the things in my life that hurt me and make me cry and that I'm missing, and I'm going to have to confront all those things that scare me and that I don't have, and I really didn't want to.
But the role suited her well. Everything was confused. Her life, cinema. She loved boundaries, danger, and always pushing for scandalous experiences. Angelina Jolie is a complete woman. When she takes something on, she gives it everything. We found a remarkable witness to her darkest years. Franklin Meyer was her dealer in New York in the mid-90s. He sold hard drugs. After serving a prison sentence, he lives alone and forgotten in California.
The first time I saw Angelina, she just showed up at my door with another actor. At the time I was selling drugs and someone had recommended her to me, but I don't remember who that was. When she came to visit me, I was living in the Chelsea Hotel. She enjoyed coming to the Chelsea. She was very friendly and we got along very nicely right away. She was very down to earth and accessible. And from there, I started to see her regularly, maybe a couple times a week if she was in town. I didn't feel that she was really going to be a long-term drug addict or anything. I think she was doing it to sort of be cool.
Franklin Meyer, wild as he is, invited us to his car to glimpse never-before-seen footage that he shot.
This is the very first night I met her. When she had a bandage on her arm, she hurt herself on a set. She was basically seemed pretty normal and well-balanced, except for the fact, of course, she was doing drugs. She tended to play young rebel without a cause kind of chicks, and probably was, might have been partly just been research for her acting.
Like, where it's more like you're tied down because you need to, like...
Yeah, she's explaining why she likes S&M sex, right?
Yeah, as opposed to being accessories or something like this.
At her dealers, Angelina participates in very serious types of conversations. Here, she's talking about accessories to be placed on the nipples. She liked sex and let him take pictures while she tattooed her lover's name on her pelvis. The image of a shadowy woman was off and running.
Sometimes I would go up to her place, and it was kind of funny, like a bachelor apartment with hardly anything in the refrigerator.
Here she's blonde in her New York apartment. Her hair is undone, and she looks tired. On her arm, the word death tattooed in Japanese. A tattoo she will get removed a few years later. Franklin Meyer films constantly. She paced back and forth nervously. At home, the walls were white and bare. No pictures, no decorations. Everything was raw and messy. Her excesses must have wiped her out, but thanks to this dark period, Angelina earned her image of sex and deviance. She was then ready to earn her first successes in the movies.
And the winner is Angelina Jolie. Yeah.
January 24th, 1999. Angelina Jolie is awarded for the film Gia. She's 24.
Mom, I know you wanted to be an actress and you gave it up to raise me, and thank you. And Jamie, my brother, I love you so much, and I have nothing. You're it's yours.
Angelina thanked her family, and not for nothing. There she is, sublime on this stage, But when we leave the Golden Globes and take a stroll down the Walk of Fame, where thousands of stars commemorate Hollywood's big names, you can look hard, but you won't find hers. In fact, she never needed one. She was a born star. She grew up here. Angelina Jolie is a pure product of Hollywood. The father she neglected to thank at the Golden Globes is none other than Jon Voight. An actor who rose to fame with the cult film Midnight Cowboy. Her mother, Marjolaine Bertrand, to whom she dedicated her Golden Globe, have her long hair and big eyes. She herself was an aspiring actress, driven by her own mother. But she only ever made small-time movies and never broke out.
Well, there's a sentence in the book where Marjolaine says to one of her friends, I realised that when I was living in Beverly Hills, one day I could marry somebody famous.
Arriving in Los Angeles, Marjolaine was a very pretty girl, a beauty to die for. She was a head-turner and caught the eye of two young actors who competed for her, Jon Voight and an Oscar-nominated, short-temper actor named Al Pacino.
And she spoke to her mother about, this romantic dilemma that she had. And her mother, being a sensible, practical woman, said, marry the guy who's got the Oscar, because he seems to be the one who's got more prospects.
They married, they were happy and beautiful, and soon had two children, James Haven and Angelina Jolie, who they fondly nicknamed Angie. This photo was taken in 1975 at 1-year-old. Angelina's parents lived under the spotlight. Marjolaine loves the atmosphere, which she had always dreamed of. She was comfortable. But soon after the birth of Angelina, Jon broke everything off. He left his family for a young actress. He punished himself for it, but Marjolaine never forgave him. Angelina was 2 years old. Her mother projected the sadness and anger grinding within her onto the little girl. We found ourselves in Pasadena, near Los Angeles, at the house of Andrew Morton, author of the controversial biography of Angelina Jolie.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you.
Why Angelina for a biography?
Angelina is one of the most interesting women on the planet. She's someone who has lived a life that has changed. It's been transformative.
The cinema is very present in this family. Can we talk a little about the grandparents and the story of this two people, Jon Voight and Marjolaine Bertrand, meeting?
The maternal side of Angelina's family comes from Chicago, and her grandmother was, they ran a bowling alley, but she always wanted to be in the movies. She had one of those mirrors with the lights all the way around, so she put her makeup on at night. She would buy all the magazines every week and look at all the movie stars. And of course she never made it in the movies. She did a little bit of modelling in Chicago, and that was it. She transferred her own ambitions to her daughter, Marjolaine. So she went to singing lessons, acting lessons, and she did a bit of modelling as well. So she lived through her mother. And then it comes to Marjolaine and Angelina. Again, Marjolaine lives through her daughter in the same way that her mother lived through her. Mm. And then on the other side, of course, you have the Voight family from the east coast of America, lived in New York, and they were a sporting family and a very talented family. And their father, his ambition for them was just to go conquer the world. Obviously, Jon Voight, when he was going through college, he was looking to be a set designer. He's a very talented artist. People don't know that, but he decided to go into acting.
Mm-hmm. In your book, you also say that Marjolaine has, programmed her two children for fame, and that she had given two first names to each.
When they were born, she gave them names that could be stage names: haven for James and Jolie for Angelina. And it's something, it's part of the story of the Voight family, that she felt that they didn't want to be overshadowed by their famous father.
Do you think, and that what you're quite writing, that all she did, I mean the bad things, drugs and all the stuff, was it just to annoy her father?
She was an incredibly precocious girl. I mean, when you think about it, she was taking acid, cocaine, heroin when she was 13 or 14. She was living with a boy at 14. She was cutting herself with knives at 14. At 15, she was modelling. At 16, at 17, she was in her first movie, starring role. She owned her first house when she was 19. She was married when she was 20. She's packed a lot in. And one of the reasons why she's packed a lot in is not just to annoy her father, but because of the family history inside the mother's side of the family, that they do not live for very long, that in their 50s and early 60s, the Bertrand family tend to succumb to cancer, sadly.
After all the research you did about her, is she still a mystery for you?
As a biographer, trying to get to the heart of Angelina is interesting because she has a narrative of her life which often rings false. She will say things for effect. She will do things for effect, and it conceals as much as it reveals.
She reveals as much as she hides. Angelina has many sides to her. To make sense of the paradox, we met one of the closest witnesses to her childhood. When Angelina was 3, Marceline fell in love with a film student named Bill Day. He was Angelina's stepfather for 12 years. He told us what happened after the separation with Jon Voight.
When they broke up, she decided she wanted to get her career going again so that she could be more independent, because even though they were separated, she was dependent on Jon.
But the movies had no interest in her. In time, like her own mother, Marceline would turn all her ambitions onto her own children. From then on, they would get used to the camera.
It was like 1978, and it was one of the first home video recording outfits you could buy. And we just started using it right away and start making all these little videos. Like if we go to Hawaii, you know, there would be Marceline and Angie, you know, dancing around out on the grass. And
these family movies show Angelina already comfortable with the camera. On the beach, she and her mother dressed in identical dresses and necklaces, teaching the girl how to move. Marceline was not a good actress, but she would prove an excellent manager for her daughter. As for her father, Jon, he did not abandon his children, even if he was not at home with them. Although Angelina would later chastise him, it seems he looked after the children whenever he could. He even influenced his daughter's profession. Angelina was very shy, but when she was 6 years old, he got her a small role in a film he was starring in. The famous father took his children to premieres. Here, they're arriving at the Oscars. At age 10, Angelina posed for photographers in a Marine's dress with angel wings. Her mother chose it. She was already used to the interviews.
And Angie's perhaps going to follow in my footsteps and the footsteps of Bobby and become an actress.
While her father speaks, the embarrassed Angelina lowers her eyes. She appears so reserved. Then suddenly, her gaze catches the journalist, and her eyes seem to say she already knows the woman she will become. Like her parents, she wanted to be an actress. However, the family has a lot of ambition not for her, but for her older brother, James.
When Jamie was a child, his nickname was the King.
Really?
Yeah, because he really was. You know, the Lord Master, and you know, he was very beautiful, and he was a handsome young man. Yeah, there were a lot of expectations that he was going to be the star.
Something inexplicable then happened. As they grew up, James, always the center of attention, became shy and decided to retire behind the camera, while Angelina, always so reserved, took the light, and became the megastar. But we learn about a great mystery in her past. At the center, a breakup. It happened here in Los Angeles. The story took place in a Beverly Hills apartment where Angelina lived with her mother. It's Andrew Morton who, after 2 years of investigation, uncovered this incredible story.
Angelina, when she was a baby, was effectively abandoned by her mother. Not because her mother didn't love her, but because Angelina reminded her husband, Jon Voight, who had just cheated on her with another woman and left the family home.
Marceline was living on the first floor of this building. She couldn't bear to see her daughter every day, so much she looked like her father. Instead, she confined the girl to a studio at the back of the 4th floor of the building, where nannies took turns to keep watch on her. Andrew Morton calls the chapter Ivory Tower.
And the person who told me this was one of the many babysitters, probably the chief babysitter, who had nursed this secret for something like 25 years. And as the story unfolded in the interview, her hands started to shake, and she rubbed her hands like this, and she was clearly in distress as she went back those 25 years to seeing this little baby, Angelina, alone in a crib in a white room with white carpet, white walls, nothing to play with.
The child spent the first months of her life there, without maternal affection, and with nothing to do but watch the sky through the window.
Angelina doesn't know this about herself because she plays a different narrative of her life to herself, a narrative which has been explained to her by her mother. Her mother is the good person in her life, her father is the bad.
To understand more about the star's childhood, we met Bill Day in New York, where he lived with Marceline, Angelina, and James when they were young. It was not downtown. It's a half-hour north of Manhattan. We drove to their former town. The place is unique and protected. Only stars live here. Natalie Portman, Bill Murray, and Al Pacino, for instance.
This is wow. This brings back some memories, you know, just.
Bill Day hasn't been here for 30 years.
You know, from being inside.
This was Al's territory.
You know, and then there's a big park, and then Al Pacino had these big dogs, and he would walk his dogs everywhere. And he would just, like, oh, bum. I mean, it was unbelievable when I first saw him. His clothes are all ragged, everything. I said, hey, you know, I guess when, you know, you've made it, you have nothing to prove, you know.
Angelina and her family spent years here, in nature, hidden out from show business. Bill Day showed us a home movie they shot on vacation. He's in front of the house. It was 25 years ago.
Bienvenidos, amigos. Aquí está.
They look like middle-class American family. No signs of the luxury of showbiz. The house is a mess. James plays paddle ball in the living room. This little girl with the scrawny legs is Angelina. She was 8 years old. Marceline, the dishwasher. Look closely. Angelina comes on camera, unflustered. In fact, it was one of her favorite games, acting. She played a boy in an interview with Bill Day and a garden hose.
And this is, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Mr. and Mrs. Poohcakes.
This is Mr. and Mrs. Poohcakes.
What kind of relationship she had with her mother at that time?
Her mother was everything. You know, her mother fulfilled all roles as a parent. So March was really, it was very matriarchal, I would say, in that respect. And so Angie was extremely close to her, extremely close. They both were, both Jamie and Angie. We were happy. We had a good time together.
One day you decided with March and the kids to come here to live. Why?
Well, that's a very curious story because A, I wasn't invited.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. In other words, she said, I'm moving and you're not. Now later, through such great writers as Andrew Morton, I was told that the real reason why she moved here was because she had a thing for Al Pacino, which I'm glad I didn't know about back then, because that was a constant threat always in my life with these big actors. And you know, she was very beautiful and all these guys were very interesting.
The kids didn't like the living here.
The schools that they went to are, you know, they're just different kind of people. I mean, these were kids that came from Beverly Hills and show business, and then suddenly, you know, you're in the real world, you know.
So you went back to LA?
Yes.
And the kids were, of course, older. How things were going at that time?
I think for Angelina, you know, I mean, she's a California girl, so coming back was good. But at the same time, I mean, you know, her experience in New York kind of changed her.
What do you mean?
I think, you know, just because she had a wider experience than just the culture of Beverly Hills. You know, she knew about more. She knew about New York. She had been in the city a lot. I don't know whether that set off her, as what people like to call her darker years, but it was definitely in that period after she got back.
Back in Los Angeles, Angelina's teen years were darker. Like many privileged young Californians who learned to rebel through decadence.
I had a fascination with blood and death. She wanted to be a funeral director when she was a kid. She was a goth when she was 12 or 13.
Marceline was very worried at that time about the kids that Angelina was hanging out with. Dangerous group of kids that were into drugs.
At 14, to keep her off the streets, her mother agreed to let her live at home with her punk boyfriend.
She tells me that Angie's boyfriend is going to move in, and oh, by the way, we're moving out of the master bedroom so they can sleep in the master bedroom. Yeah, that went over really well.
Angelina's adolescence was made up of precocious experiences. Almost no images remain from this dark period in her life. But it would nevertheless serve to build up legend later on. More than anything, she understood that provocation would get people talking about her. The day of the Golden Globes, just after receiving her award, radiant as she was, Angelina leaped into the swimming pool where the ceremony was held. She dragged a journalist, who had come for an interview, in with her. She didn't forget to dive for his microphone, so he could do his job. Jeremy Lewers was the journalist to take the plunge that night.
When I saw her, you know, in there, she was in there with a couple other people, and she kept saying to everybody, get in the pool, get in the pool. And I wanted an interview, so I just went to the side of the pool, and she said, get in. I said, no, I don't want to get in. And she ended up grabbing onto me and pulling me in. And I had my tuxedo, and the mic exploded, and I had cigars in my pocket that came up, and my cell phone. She was great. She was fantastic. She was on top of the world that night. Well, I think once she got a taste of stardom, she liked it, and she went with it.
She knows that these things get people talking about her. Her provocational strategy only gets more and more effective. In 2000, dressed in a very Cruella de Vil gown, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. In front of the world media, she pulled her brother on stage and passionately kissed him on the mouth. Since their parents' divorce, the siblings' relationship has been symbiotic. Some have dubbed this strange moment the vampire kiss, an unconscious revenge for all the years James was the sole object of parental ambitions. With that kiss, she sucked the last drops of career out of him. From then on, he would only be known as Angie's brother. Lisa Stanley saw the kiss live. She hosts a celebrity TV show and was at the Oscars that night.
At the time that Angelina kissed her brother, we all thought it was beyond strange. I wouldn't say bad. What I would say is Angelina does nothing without calculating it. And even back then, I believe she calculated that kiss to get her name out. She knew she wanted to be famous. And the only way to do it was to do crazy things to get noticed. She had to get noticed.
After the incestuous kiss, contradiction, as Angelina began experimenting on another register, her sexuality. She came public in a homosexual relationship with actress Jenny Shimizu, his co-star in the film Foxfire.
Even though she did crazy things, she was crazy like a fox, smart girl. Any press, we have a saying here, any press is good press. Just spell my name right.
She declared herself homosexual, but she was also married and collecting men. Her lovers have been actors or singers. Obvious, given that show business is all Angelina has ever known. She successively married two of her lovers, Johnny Lee Miller, her co-star in the movie Hackers, and Billy Bob Thornton, another co-star. Their relationship would produce plenty of scandal, chock full of public displays, and tumultuous passion. It was a treat for the media.
He looks sexy anytime, but I like him first thing in the morning.
And like teenagers, they tattooed each other's names.
I have his name twice. One is in a very private place, and one is because I'm proud of it and I like to see it every day.
But it went further. She carried a vial of his blood around her neck.
That's his. Which is beautiful to me. You know, some people like diamonds around their necks or things like that. I think that's beautiful, and it makes me, it's his life.
One of Angelina's most notorious suitors was a rock legend, Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger is slack-jawed. He thinks that, wow. And he pursues her for years. Mick was absolutely besotted. The men in her life have been, it's very interesting. They've all had to compromise themselves in order to win her. So Mick Jagger pursued her, even though he was married to Jerry Hall. Billy Bob Thornton pursued her, even though he was about to marry Laura Dern. So virtually every man, including Brad Pitt, who of course famously left Jennifer Aniston to be with Angelina, has compromised themselves in order to be with her.
Angelina used her provocation and shadowiness to build her character. Whether true or false, the girl from Beverly Hills, born to be a star, built herself into a shadowy legend.
I went through heavy, darker times and I survived them. I didn't die young, so I'm very lucky. There are other artists and people that didn't survive certain things. For many reasons, I shouldn't be here. Too many dangerous things, too many chances taken, too far.
It was in the depths of this dark phase that fate took a turn. Angelina Jolie played a healthy and positive heroine as Lara Croft and turned into a global star. The role upturned her life. Simon West, the director of Lara Croft, had a privileged view of Angelina's metamorphosis.
I think I got her at the best possible time. I think she was ready to change from this dark, troubled teenage past. I mean, she was still very young. She was still in her early 20s and hadn't really seen the world or knew what was out there. She was ready and looking for the next thing. And when I came along with this and said, oh, you can be a superhero, you can be super clean, she went on special diets, special exercise regimes, special fight training. When I first met her, she was very thin and very weak and, you know, looked like she would blow away in the wind. And the first day of training when she came in, we had these big guns that she had to use, and she couldn't even lift them up. Her arms weren't strong enough to lift the guns up. And, but by the end of it, she was spinning them around, throwing them in the air, and doing all this incredible work. She'd become so strong and so healthy that she was just transformed as a person.
Finish your tea. It tastes quite bad, but it is good for you. See?
Angelina did most of the stunts in the movie herself, and it wasn't just because of some bravado or something. She was actually very good at everything, and she was very physically adept. She was fearless, and she would swing backwards and forwards on the moving spike. And actually the stunt girls tried it out so we could test it, and they couldn't really stand up on it very well and looked very shaky. And Angelina comes along to do the shoot and actually gets on it straight away and looks perfect. And she was fearless. A couple of times I had to stop her taking her safety cable off. She wanted to take it off, and you know, I'd have to make sure she didn't.
As much as possible.
3, 2, 1, go!
This leap was a leap into reality, real life. The film was shot in Cambodia. When she arrived in the country, Angelina was shocked to see the misery around her. She had lived her whole life among stars, and suddenly she fell to earth. In a country full of children, she seemed to discover humanity.
When she went to Cambodia and she saw real poverty and real simplicity and how people really struggle to eat, let alone just find clothes to wear, I think it completely changed her perception of the world and realized, you know, life is not Hollywood, and she just blossomed.
She blossomed in that time and met someone who would change her forever.
Cambodia, I think, is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I fell in love with it at first, and the people, and I'd thought about adoption, but it hadn't all made sense. It hadn't come together. I wasn't ready to be a mom. I didn't know anything. But I saw this little boy, and I thought, I don't know, I don't believe in fate or destiny or things like that, but something suddenly felt right. And then I came back a third time and met my son.
And Maddox, the orphan child from Cambodia, he becomes the absolute centre of her universe, the love of her life, because he's the one boy, the one man who's never betrayed her. And every other man in her life has betrayed her. And he becomes her sun, her moon, her stars, her heaven on earth.
The adoption was highly publicized. Angelina has been criticized for her close and secretive relationship with her son. But she does not care. She's above that, only interested in him. In fact, the person to leak the news was her father, Jon Voight, whom she has never really forgiven for leaving her mother. He spoiled the event by announcing it to the press.
Angelina just got a baby yesterday. She got her
she had adopted a Cambodian baby, and she's a baby boy. So I'm a grandfather today.
She was so upset that she didn't speak to him for 6 years following. In 2004, just 29 years old and alone with her son on a beach in California, Angelina appeared to be reaching happiness in spite of everything. She's rich. Lara Croft earned her a lot of money, and Maddox helped her to see who she wanted to be. The Gothic icon turned into an ambassador for peace. From then on, she would focus on helping those who needed most, all over the planet. Cambodia revealed her conscience.
Many times you come to the poorest countries, like a country like this, and you find that families really spend time together. They work together, they hold on to whatever little they have, and it binds them, and they appreciate. And so sometimes the simple pleasures of life and not having very much tends to keep a family together in a way that I think we can learn from, that I certainly have learned from. Appreciate something very simple.
The first time I met her was when she came to the embassy with a UN escort officer. I mean, you get people that come out more for their own purpose than to help the people that need it the most. You get publicity seekers.
The ambassadors didn't quite know what to think of her, but ever since, Angelina has moved among the world leaders. Condoleezza Rice, United States Secretary of State, sat down next to her. Angelina entered into the international scene. At age 30, the former punk was dressed in a black suit, a smart bun, and a row of pearls around her neck. It was a discreet and respectable woman who stepped up to the podium to denounce the violence of war. More and more, she finances trips with her own personal funds. Here she's in Chad, where she went to meet and assist refugees in makeshift camps. She soothes children and comforts mothers. In just 4 years, Jolie has become a major figure in the humanitarian community. She tirelessly travels the globe to help ease suffering on all continents. She no longer bottles up her emotions on the stage. She no longer needs a nice suit and a bun. She's true, plain, and simple.
How can we relax in the safety and security of our own homes, knowing that people are out there somewhere forced to leave theirs? That somewhere right now, they are sleeping in the dirt with their children, unable to find food and shelter. So this day should be the beginning of all of us deciding we should do more to help others every day.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a man also launched himself into humanitarian action. They did not yet know each other. This is Brad Pitt. He's in Ethiopia, shocked by his encounters with children.
You can be walking down the aisle and all of a sudden you feel something grab your hand. You look down, it's just a little one who's like 4 or 5. And you see the power of contact. And I remember one boy specifically laying in his crib and I just put my hand on his chest. And this wave of bliss came over his face. And the power in that, the power in just the human touch. Broke my heart.
Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie seem made for each other. For the two megastars, it was inevitable. It should seem obvious. It was only on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, shot in 2004, that their destinies collided. Doug Liman directed this film, starring 2 of the biggest leads of all time. He told about the experience, which changed their lives forever.
Angelina, you know, is so sharp You really have to be on your A game. You know, there's some actors, including Brad Pitt, who are a little bit more easygoing. Angelina Jolie is like, she is like really, really like sharp. We really didn't have any other choice but Angelina Jolie. I could rattle off, you know, 5 actors who, you know, probably could have played Mr. Smith, like Johnny Depp or Will Smith, Tom Cruise. Brad Pitt is obviously incredibly strong. Story-wise, they're kind of strangers to each other. They're married, but they don't really know each other. So I wanted to take maximum advantage of the fact that they really were strangers. And so I was like, I'm not going to do any rehearsal at all. I'm going to sit them down, I'm going to call action and see what I get. And so what I got is actually what you see in the film. It was kind of magic from the first second.
It was an act of magic. In 2005, Brad Pitt left his wife to live with Angelina. Together, they make the most glamorous couple on the planet. Their appearances cause riots. Their stars merge to form their own galaxy. They're referred to as Brangelina. Some months later, they were expecting their first child. Nevertheless, Angelina didn't put her activism on hold. To the contrary, in the film A Mighty Heart, she used her real pregnancy to portray Marianne Pearl, the wife of a US journalist beheaded by terrorists in Pakistan. The pregnant woman was robbed of her husband at the very end of her pregnancy. Yet her more engaged films have been commercial failures. To earn back her audience and earn some money, to better redistribute, Angelina had to go back to her basics, glamorous and well-paid roles, such as the Lara Croft sequel.
Hello, boys. You're all wet.
Many other action movies that fill theaters and producers' pockets. Today, Angelina earns $30 million per film and is the highest paid actress in Hollywood. So, for her first film as a director, In the Land of Blood and Honey, it was logical that she returns to her political interests. With a hard-hitting script about the war in former Yugoslavia, Angelina voiced her stances on peace and women's issues.
At first, it was just to write a story that would be universal and kind of a relationship that could have been a beautiful relationship, could have ended in family and children and happiness and love and what war does to that relationship.
The film's heroine is trapped in a white room where she has nothing else to do but look out the window. Angelina Jolie told a magazine, "All my life, all I did was look out the window, saying that there was a place where I would end up sending my roots and be happy." It's her mother who gave her this key to happiness, a mother she adored and who died in 2007.
She's taught me a lot about the importance of that, of just being, just everyday kindness, and I think it's the most important thing about being a mom. Just letting the kids know how much they make you happy, you know, is the great gift to give them. Other than the discipline's important and all of this is important and what you give them in their schooling and their education, all of that very important. But the most important thing is to let them know what a joy they are for you and what a pleasure it is to be their mother.
Politics, activism, and passion. Angelina seems to have become a citizen of the world and settled down. Her marriage surely has something to do with it. In just a few years, she and Brad Pitt have formed a kind of ideal family, composed of children of all colors, with 3 children adopted from poor countries and 3 biological children. Their tribe embodies generosity, love, and diversity. Brad and Angelina's family symbolizes a certain idea of perfection. For this reason, when Brad Pitt went to Cannes in 2011 to show his film, The Tree of Life, the audience was in for a surprise. As the three main characters climbed the palace steps in triumph, Angelina was left behind, trapped in the crowd of guests. What happened next was like a real-life fairy tale. In Provence, where she retreats to her prince's castle, the lady conqueror is more inaccessible than ever. And yet she has also become more human. When you've won everything, what else is there to prove? Get married, find success as a woman, as a mother, as a committed artist. A political life may be taking shape. Meanwhile, Jolie remains an enigma. She blazes her own trail, never afraid of anything.